Ayo, Plaidman here. Doing a different light setup. Hopefully it's better than the last one. So, I saw Furiosa, a Mad Max saga in theaters with the wife. And I'm annoyed. I'm annoyed not because they made the movie, because I am happy that they made the movie. I'm annoyed because it felt lazy. It felt like the creators were just like, oh, well, we can't get Tom Hardy to come back or Charlize Theron because one or both of them are divas to do another one, which frankly, you don't need both. You just need Tom Hardy. And as far as I can tell, Tom Hardy is in a diva. So just do another one. Like, just continue the Mad Max saga. You did a terrific job. You built this little world, and you told a great movie with Fury Road. And it irritates me also, so just to be super irritated, in a world right now where it's like, oh, hey, they're not making enough money. Oh, yeah, see, Fury Road didn't even make that much money in theaters. It barely made back what it cost, which might be true. It might actually totally be true. But I also call bullshit because Hollywood has this way of like elongating, elasticating, exasperating, puffing up their numbers and making it total BS. When it's like, no, that's how the living F did you spend $175 million on this film? And I'm not trying to knock the film because like Fury Road is amazing, like it is. And I know I'm not trying to talk about Fury Road, but it is relevant. But the idea is like it didn't make money, and I'm like, well, I'm one of the people that bought the DVD, and I'm fairly certain that I'm not the only person that bought the DVD. That being said, because of how iconic that movie was in general, it was akin to like when John Wick came out, but even more so, that I'm fairly certain they made their money back probably, I'll be generous and say 5 times as much. I wouldn't be surprised if they actually made 10 times their money back, which is why they greenlit Furiosa, and why it took so long is probably because of backroom BS stuff. Now, talking about Furiosa, I feel like I would be remiss if I didn't mention the 2 main characters. I know Anna Taylor-Joy from numerous things, The Menu being one, which is a terrific movie you should definitely watch. She was the voice in Super Smash Bros. As Peach, which is... It's one of those things, you can harken back to old Disney when they didn't have like mainstream actors doing the voices, and you're like, oh my god, this is amazing. It's almost like I actually give a crap about these characters, and they actually seem to like act well. I know it's become the common thing of like, yeah, we're just gonna put big names in these things, and I'm not knocking that. I get it, and she did fine as Peach. I just didn't care. Like, it wasn't... she just didn't do epic at Peach. So I was like, meh, whatever. But, like, she was Peach. She did a thing called Queen's Gambit, which was a really good short TV show about a girl, young lady, rather, being really proficient at chess, which is awesome. And I feel like it really enthused a lot of people into the concept of chess. And if nothing else, it really helped with that. It's also total BS. There's a reason why men and women don't compete in chess tournaments, because women get their ass kicked by men. So it's a big lie. But I don't care, because the overall point was, hey, get into chess. And chess is awesome. Anyways. The movie. Furiosa. Frankly, it's a hot mess. It's a hot mess. I wouldn't watch it in theaters. I wouldn't waste your time or your money. Because it's a long movie. And when you go to the theaters, if you arrive on time, it's a 3-hour movie. Because you have to deal with a bunch of trailers and such. Which is fine. I like trailers. Trailers are great. it's just a 3-hour movie. It's actually a 2.5-hour movie, but you start a movie at 7:30, you're not getting out until 10, bud. That's just the way the world works. I don't know how that works math-wise. 9:30, 2.5, 10. Oh, so you're not getting out to 10:30 is what I meant to say. Anyways, I will say this. I'll leave it to that. Anyways, so Anna Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth are the only reason to watch this film. Frankly, they're the best parts, and they do a fair job with what they're given. I don't like it, though. I don't like the movie in general. I think it's kind of a hot mess. I think that they were given a lot of money, and they didn't. They kind of did this thing like they did with the first Gladiator film, where it just works. Hi, Embers. And then they tried to like recreate it, and it's like, well, no, okay, just because it worked the first time doesn't mean you should do it again, because it doesn't work for everyone. You know, it's like a dude like using a pickup line and it worked on one chick, and then he's like, I'll just use it again. And it's like, oh, okay, and then he's surprised that it doesn't work again. And it's like, well, it doesn't work on everyone, and it depends on the circumstances. And maybe you shouldn't use pickup lines. Like, just thought, maybe be a better human being and not use pickup lines. I don't know, whatever. So I was talking to a friend of mine, and I think the movie suffers from the same thing that the Han Solo movie suffered from, in the sense of like, you're trying to put in all these Easter eggs. Like the Han Solo movie put in all these Easter eggs of like, these are where the dice came from. This is where his gun came from. This is his past love. And this is why he's like so this way. And da. All these things, which we as an audience didn't care about, didn't matter, didn't... Like, I wasn't watching the original and I'm like, hey, I wonder what those dangling things in front of their thing are for. Like, never did that occur to me at all. Until the promo for the new movie, and I was like, we're going to explain the dingly dice and why they're significant. And I'm like, okay. Never occurred to me at all in the myriad of times I rewatched that. But okay, thanks, I guess. And that's kind of what it felt like. Not quite as in your face, but equally bad in that, like, hey, Furiosa is this amazing character that we created, and she had this terrific arc in the story. In the movie we already showed you, she had this wonderful arc and this epic moment, and you're feeling for Furiosa. Arguably, you're feeling for Furiosa more than you're feeling for Max. Max is almost the vehicle for Furiosa to have her arc, right? Because without Max, Furiosa wouldn't have the same arc. She just wouldn't. She wouldn't have survived. And then they're like, okay, so I got that, but we're just gonna go up to just before that movie starts. We're not gonna tie it in properly. We're not gonna really like give a crap about the emotional like, we'll try, but not really. Like, not really. It felt like we made that movie, Fury Road, but we're also gonna we're just gonna make this movie as well, and then we're gonna pair it together. And it's like, okay. And frankly, it's a good film. It's a passable film. I don't know if it's the same editor, because I know there's a big hoopla about, oh, he hired his wife, and it's good to have a woman to, edit something instead of men, so it's not an action movie. Whatever. I don't know. I don't really care. I just didn't like it. It was just bad. Like, it was so prolonged. There were so many moments of like, hey, there's this like motion that's supposed to be happening and it's taking a while. So, and I realized that, hey, it should probably take less time. So let me just speed it up a little bit. Like pushing instead of 1 speed, it's 1.25 speed. And I'm like, or you could just cut the shot and move on to the next gosh darn thing of the gosh darn story. Maybe. Just a concept. What a concept. Like, hey, we don't need this prolonged thing of like, she's driving up a sand dune. I'm like, I don't care. It's probably a stunt double. I don't actually care that she's driving up a sand dune. Like, the amount of sand dunes that were driven up was like, okay, cool. If I was an off-road enthusiast, I might be overawed of the epicness of what just transpired. I'm like, man, I need a truck like that with 6 tires so I can just drive up sand dunes like that. That was super amazing. But like me, the normal human being, is like, I don't care. I don't care. I'm less enthused. What I loved about it was probably 3 things. Anya Taylor-Joy did a really, really good job in general. Not perfect. I don't necessarily want to blame her. I think the script wasn't really... I think the script is like fundamentally flawed. When you have a fundamental flaw, it just permeates the entirety of the thing. And the same thing I would say about Chris Hemsworth is he reminded me so much of Jason Momoa in Fast 9. In that, like, his character equally was over the top, arguably ridiculous, but in the context of the world, you're like, it actually kind of works. And the problem I had was and my wife was much better at this than me. She just looked at the whole thing as like, this whole thing is ridiculous. And I kept thinking like, no, this is like based in reality. This is not sci-fi. This is supposed to be based in like some lexicon of reality, which is what practical effects and things of that nature are supposed to have, which kept getting ruined when they just like 1.25 speed. Like, stop doing that. Just cut, go somewhere else. Like, oh my God. So it was very frustrating and I was very annoyed about the whole thing. So those 2, and then there was a fundamental thing that I liked, even though they did it wrong almost every single time. But I applaud that I felt like there was almost somebody there who was like, hey, what about this? Which was not necessarily the battle scenes, like, the cinematics, and people were like, oh, yeah, this was cool, and there was some cool set pieces. But there was a certain level of tactic and war and battle and how one does something. Without getting super historical, I did mention it to my wife, but then there's an initial reaction between Chris Hemsworth's character and the Citadel. And effectively, his band of bandits they arrive, and they're like raiders. They're like, hey, we're going to take your shit at the Citadel. But the Citadel is effectively highly fortified, super highly fortified scenario, and they're just like, come at me, bro. Like, no problem, come at me. And what I was telling Jessica, my wife, is like, this is such a fascinating thing because throughout history, this is what has happened. You initially have like nomads or raiders, and they traverse the area and they'll terrorize the local communities, and the local communities will kind of consolidate, or if not, they'll fortify their general area. Not their farms, but they'll like, oh, hey, we're being attacked. Let's come over here, and we have stakes and a wall. And that's effectively what the Citadel was. And that's what Chris Hemsworth's character dealt with, is like, yeah, no, actually, you're running into a heavily fortified thing. Your sense of presence, your force, as awesome as it is not enough to break that nut. And then he did attack one of the other cities, which I'm not trying to spoil it for you, and had a different kind of reaction. And it was very interesting. And then seeing that traverse. So I kind of applaud that. And I had another issue where like there was attacks on like a war rig. And my wife was like, yeah, but that's kind of how that would go. And it made me rethink of that. And I was like, that's a valid point. Like, you try one thing, it doesn't quite work. You try another thing, it doesn't quite work. To me, it felt a bit like we're putting on a show. Whereas with the first movie, it felt really organic. Like, hey, we're going here, and like, oh, we're being attacked. Oh, this is happening. Oh, we're this. And you, as an audience member, felt like you were feeling at the same time as the characters in the movie of like, oh, snap, this is happening now. As opposed to like, yeah, we're just going along, and it's just a normal occurrence for us to just be attacked all the time. And I kept thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, does nobody have like a rifle? Like, you have all this other stuff. You spent all this energy on building this war rig that's super badass, and you didn't think to like, hey, maybe we should get rifles, or I don't know, bow and arrows, or I don't know, something that could like help us other than just like lobbing, I guess, Molotov cocktails, which is not nothing, but that's like spear, which is really kind of low tech when you consider that they have like 2 V8 engines and an 18-wheeler that's dragging basically 2 loads worth of fuel or mother's milk or whatever. And again, my wife is like, well, don't take it seriously. And it's like, yeah, I don't want to, but I felt like they were trying to. Like, when you watch Dumb and Dumber, you don't take that serious because it's Dumb and Dumber. And, same thing with, I'm trying to think of the name of the movie, with Ben Stiller and their models. And you're like, oh, yeah, a bunch of gay guys are like throwing gasoline around in a gas thing, and then they light a cigarette and burn themselves alive. Zoolander. And you're like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. Or like you have a model who's a hand model, and he's got his model in a cake. Like, okay, this is ridiculous. It's meant to be ridiculous. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, was meant to be serious. I think that their intention was to, like, for people to be like, yeah, no, this is for realsies. And my wife's like, well, I didn't take it for realsies. And I'm left with like, okay, you probably did the right thing then, because I took it for reals and they lied to me and they misled me and they did a crappy job, like across the board. There's a scene between Anya Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth that I really wanted to enjoy. And it was good. It was like 3/4, 75% good. And then there was this moment where Anya Taylor-Joy does a thing, and I'm just like, no, that's not how a human being would react in that situation. That's not how your character would react in that situation. What are you doing? And that just kind of permeated. It was just like they couldn't just, I don't know. I think they just did a bad job. I think they were like, let's just make a prequel. And then I'll finish it with this. I am not a fan that they basically made a prequel that rides right up to and butts up exactly next to Fury Road. So they made a movie that went right up to, and then boom, that. And it just felt really weird, considering that Anya Taylor-Joy is significantly younger than Charlize Theron. So it's almost like, wait, are you just recasting Charlize Theron then? Because that's weird. I mean, okay, fine, but just weird. And when I think prequel, I think like 5 years before. Or if you're going to go way back, then it ends at 5 years before. Or 2 years or something like that. But it seemed like they kind of pulled a Marvel and they're like, yeah, no, we're just basically recasting. Anya Taylor-Joy is going to do this now. And it just felt kind of weird. And I didn't like it. And yeah. So that's kind of my review. And this is Plaid Man. Sorry, I've been up since 5 a.m. I've been doing weed whacking. I've been doing stuff and things. Been listening to political stuff, listening to audiobook, trying to reassess my life, trying to not have my wife be angry at me. I don't know. It's been a wonderful week, guys. I love you all. By the way, I'm 37 now, so I have a lot of improvements to do because I am not where I'm supposed to be. Anyways, that's it for now. Plaid Man out. I love you. This is Embers. Hey, Embers. She loves it when I'm on the computer. Anyhow, I'll talk to you all later. Funny thing, I just want to say this. I wasn't going to do a video. I was just tired or whatever. I was actually coming to do some administrative stuff on hours and on my job. And I was like, yeah, well, I'll just make a video real quick. So thank you all for those who watch, and appreciate it. Please like, and more importantly, comment. I don't care if you hate it. I would rather read your comment. Or tell me, hey, bro, I love this movie that's from like 30 years ago. Watch it and tell me what you think of it. You know, I don't think of myself as the best reviewer, but not by, or even a terrific or good reviewer. But yeah, I'll happily go out of my way to watch the movie you want me to watch and review it. And I'll even shout out to you in the video. All right, I love you all. Bye, man out.